after recommendation from Joe sir, we are extended that all other centers are continued that webinar series like Thiru Center is Kaladi for seminars like that. Thuravoor also conducted, and we are fully utilizing the virtual platforms for learning and enhancing our knowledge. So in this academic year itself, we are organizing a lot of seminars. I think in this month itself, it is 6th seminar organizing our department, and 2 from Thuravoor Center. I'm very happy that, and I like to congratulate Thuravoor Regional Center Department of Social Work for organizing such a wonderful programs in this academic year that will enhancing the knowledge of our students and also for the entire academicians. Then definitely this program will be a fruitful session for and give insight to everyone who are attending the seminar regarding the social work education from an international perspective. By sir will give you a very good session. I hope that it will be a very good session, and I wish all the best and all the wishes for the organizers for conducting this seminar, and I'm thanking you for the inviting me for giving felicitation for this seminar. All the best. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your words. Now I would like to invite Dr. Anita Ma'am, Teacher in Charge, Department of Social Work, SSUS RC Payanur, for the felicitation address.
Thank you so much. Respected Sheelama teacher, my colleagues, Baiju sir, our friend and colleague. So I think when we talk about international perspective, I think especially when our university thinks of international perspectives on social work, the first name that comes to our mind is surely Dr. Baiju. As Sheelama teacher has rightly put it, he is the best person who knows the realities of our university, the Kerala and Indian situation, and the best person, of course, to talk about the international perspectives, since he's been practicing at an international level since the last few years. So I think, most importantly, I would like to congratulate the Thuravoor team, faculty team, and the student team who had started off. This time, it's been the webinar series has been kicked off from the southern part of our university campus. So you have initiated. So it's been quite visible. You have been going through lots of webinars at this point, and moving on to a very relevant topic, which is international perspectives on social work education and practice. As we all know, ever since our university has started in 1995, we have lots of our alumni who are now working as academicians and practitioners all over the world. So it is indeed important that as students, you do rightly get right information about what is happening at the global perspective, at global level. And especially in this COVID pandemic, when all the internationally we are all fighting a common battle against COVID pandemic. Whatever be the issues that we are tackling at the local level. Now the slogan is like think globally and act locally. So it's important for us to understand all the perspectives, all the theoretical perspectives, as well as all the best practices that are happening worldwide, so that we put them into best practice at local level. So I wish the team the very best, and looking forward to Baiju sir's words. Thank you so much for.
Thank you, ma'am, for your valuable words. Moving on to the core part of the webinar, I would like to invite Ms. Avani Osi for presenting the profile of our beloved speaker.
Good morning, everyone. So let me introduce our respected resource person, V Baiju sir, to you all. V Baiju Hall, Masters in Social Work, Sociology and Economics. He received doctorate for his research on community engagement practices of NGOs. He was into a program and current research activities include a book on participant practices of in media, book chat, journal articles, and conference presentations. Baiju is an elected member of Alberta College of Social Workers. Now, let me hand over the session to our Honorable Chief Guest, V Baiju sir. Over to you, sir.
A very good morning to everyone. It is close to 11 o'clock night for me. I'm so happy to participate and talk in this for inviting me to share some thoughts with you. I see some of my very dear colleagues and friends here, Dr. Anita, Dr. Sheelama, Dr. Anas, Sarubalan, and Dr. Anish from Thuravoor, as well as lots of students. I appreciate the effort of the students, Sree Bala, Christina, Avani, Sibila, all those people who have been coordinating this event. I have a small presentation that I will share with you. Let me try to share it with you now. Okay, I hope you are able to see this presentation.
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. So, social work education practice and international perspectives is a topic that have been chosen for this international seminar series. I have my plan is to share some. The next one, okay. I have 10 observations. I would rather call them as observations than sharing of knowledge, because they are observation on social practice and social education from my experience of social work education practice in India and in Canada, as well as all those international collaborations that I have been able to be part of. And when I share these points, these are not any judgments, these are not any, but these are my observations and sharings. I may take some 30 to 45 minutes to share these points, and subsequently we could have discussions, questions. The first point is with regard to one key thing about social work as a profession in many of the developed countries is it is a registered profession. Social work is not a registered profession in India, so as in many other countries. If I'm correct in my statistics, close to 86 countries in the world, social work is a registered profession. I want to take a few minutes to go back to the history of social work as a profession. As you know, social work originated as a profession in late 19th century, like the first college of social work, not actually first college of social work, but the first program of social work education was started by Mary Richmond in 1896 in US, which is presently the Columbia School of Social Work in US. And Columbia School of Social Work have had professors from India or people of Indian origin as teaching there. Then you know that social work became a profession in 1930s. So even in the first college of social work or association of social work, US and Canada, as well as in Britain in 1930s. So there is a compulsory registration for all social work educated people. That registration is done under certain legally mandated associations or colleges. Like association and colleges are different. So I have given some of the names of the associations and provincial bodies. So there are as well as provincial bodies. When I say province, it is same as the state as we call in India. As all of you know, like, US has 50 states and Canada has 12. Oh God, I forgot like how many provinces, but we call it a kind of provinces here. So the registration of a social worker is managed by a council which is under the state level. To give a inference from Indian context, you may have heard that you have heard about AMA in India or Medical Council in India, Bar Council in India. Bar Council is the official body to which a person after proper education has to get registered to practice as a lawyer in India. So as with the medical education, so as with the nurses. So that is the type of regulation which is required for social work as well in most of the developed countries. So in US, we'll find National Association of Social Workers, which is association, which is not the registration body. So association is different from the college or the regulatory body. So the regulatory bodies are which controls the regulatory functions. Like I get registered, I have to renew it every year. I have to take the license. That is all done by the college or regulatory body. But association is something like we have CAPS in Kerala or NASW in India at national level, which comes together and fight for the needs of the social workers as well as do some work in the nature of the profession. So those are different things. Then National Association of Social Workers is one in the US, and which is the biggest body of social workers in the entire world. Even now, some of the things that we teach in our school, like when I was teaching in India or when I learned social work in India, the ethics was the ethics that we had taken from NASW. Then there is Council of Social Work Education. There's another body, Council of Social Work Education in India, in US, which is actually regulating the quality and standards of social work education in US. And just for information, people from Kerala are members of this, and we have one of our own alumni who is from the first batch in Pioneer Center, Dr. Johnny Augustine, who is a faculty in St. Thomas University in US. He is in a big position with the CSWE, like he is a chair of the one of the subcommittee of that organization. Then there is a CSW, Canadian Associate Social Workers, and the one in our province is Alberta College of Social Workers. Alberta College of Social Workers is the regulatory body to which we have to get registered, and there are around 8,000 social workers registered in our council. And our province, like our state, has a population of 44 lakh people, and out of 44 lakh people, we have more than 8,000 social workers. So I'm a member of the council. Like you can stand in election to get elected to the council, and I'm serving the second term as a member of the council. So I get to see the inside picture of the council and also influence or take part in the decision-making process. And as you know, there are international bodies. Like these are 3 international bodies which are the significant players in the social work education practice field. International Association of Schools of Social Work, International Federation of Social Work, International Council of Social Workers. You can take individual membership in all of these. ICSW has a Kerala state chapter, national chapter, so as international chapter. You can take individual membership in IASW. You can also take individual membership in IFSW. And IFSW, due to the efforts of many of the combined effort of many of the social work associations in India, now India, that combined board is a member of IFSW. And Dr. P.K. Shajagan, who is a present faculty in TASS Mumbai, who used to be a faculty with our department way back some 20 years back. He is in the executive committee of IASW as well as of ICSW. So we have people from our own school, our own program, serving in most of these, not actually most of these committees, but some of these committees. One more point I wanted to revisit into the historical context of social work as a profession is that, social work started as a community work, not as a clinical work. And when I say social work, I'm referring to professional social work. And as you study in social work education, social work began as an offshoot of urbanization and capitalism. And it was in 1930s that social work, there was a move to regulate profession. It is when, and one of the conditions for becoming professional was, it has to have a kind of one-on-one work, like clinical work. And that is when social work inclined towards clinical work. And of course, there was a progressive adaptation towards psychological methods and social work intervention. And you can see that change going from clinical mode and critical progress towards 1970s and 80s. Okay. On my personal reflection, I have been thinking that when we say about regulation, there are lots of people who argue against social workers being regulated or licensed. As a matter of fact, all the professions in all the developed countries are regulated. Like if you want to be a carpenter, you have to get the proper course, proper license, proper registration. If you want to be a plumber, welder, physiotherapist, or whatever bit, like in our province, we have 31 professions in just in the health sector alone. Then there are numerous others in trades, all other activities of human, spheres of human activity. So people say this is over-regulating human behavior. So what I'm trying to say is that, not everyone favors the registration part of it. But one good thing about the registration is that it brings quality, standardization. You may be reading in newspaper, the accreditation of a medical college was not granted by medical council because of the poor quality of things. So for social work education, unfortunately, we don't have a kind of standardized accreditation in India. And there are several organization, association, with some of whom I was also part of it, to make some kind of accreditation. Perhaps in the future it may come to effect. We also need to have professional insurance, like you see in Kerala also, certain doctors have been breached or barred from service, or lawyers have been barred from service, or because of their or issues, or you can file a case against a doctor or a lawyer. So somebody can file a case against a social worker here, and it goes to millions of dollars. So you have to have professional insurance to maintain the registration. So this is one element about social work, and which is a kind of regulated and registered profession. And another feature with international perspective in the practice of social work is the defined roles of social workers. In most of the developed countries, social work has been a very specifically defined profession with its own roles and responsibilities. So some of them include, assessment, resource mobilization, connecting with the families and caregivers, leading sessions, group sessions, managing on-man support, leadership role, administrations, community work, social activism, and taking care of the vulnerable people, disabled people, the whole sector of people. Whereas in many of the developing countries, it is not a very specifically defined work in social work. And social workers work with a multidisciplinary team as well as an interprofessional approach, which means like social workers work with doctors, nurses, physiotherapists in a hospital setting. Doctors work with the lawyers, workers, politicians, all segments you can see the contribution of a social worker. And they're also very specified and defined in a social work setting. Interestingly, when you look into social work education, you can see social work under different umbrellas. What I mean by different umbrellas is like in some unit work under the health department or health, the faculty of health. Some universities you may see it under arts. In some universities, you may see a whole department of or whole faculty of social work. So there are different arguments. Does social work belong just into health sector, or is it much beyond and above health sector? And that discussion is still going on in several ways. Third area I wanted to explore is very clearly defined ethical roles for social work. One of the attributes of any profession, as you may have learned in your initial courses in social work, is a defined ethics and standards of behavior for the professionals. Social work has a very clearly defined ethical body of principles and practice frame, like a practice guidelines. Yeah. So internationally, it has been given by International Federation of Social Work. If you just Google for social work ethics, IFSW ethics comes first, and IFSW ethics has a list of 6 of them, the core principles of social work. In Canada, there is Canadian Association of Social Workers have it. In the US, there is National Association of Social Workers. I'm not very familiar with the other bodies in other countries. That is why I'm not referring to them. I have been advocating with all the national level leaders of social work association in India that we should have a kind of ethical principles which we should specifically follow for India. Unfortunately, some of the ethical principles that we learn is still taken from Western countries, but there are lots of movements happening, and I hope that there are some ethical principles that is specifically defined and developed for Indian context. And there are standards of practice that is issued by regional, state level, provincial bodies. And everyone learns a course on social work ethics. I have been teaching social work ethics in my social work diploma and degree programs for quite some time now. And it gives a very clear procedure of ethics. Like, say, for example, how long you should keep a document of your client. When can you have a personal relationship with your client? Say, for example, the client that you are meeting is a auto mechanic, and you are working with the client, and one fine day that you find that your car is not working. So will you make use of the help of your client to fix your car, to repair your car? Those are kind of questions that comes in, where we have to look into very specific ethical boundaries and relationship. And as a breach of ethics, the client can sue. Before the court, they can complain into the regulatory body. Like, say, for example, if you find some kind of misbehavior from a doctor, you can definitely complain to the medical council. Similarly, social workers also can be sued. So in our province, like as I said, like there are 8,000 social workers, registered social workers in our province. We used to get around 100 complaints every year against social workers, and we have staff in our council who inquire about the complaint and resolve the complaint in different ways. And huge amounts are spent for the litigation process of these complaints also. So there is a legal enforcement of standards of practice. Like, if you do not follow this particular ethics or this document standards of practice, you are liable to be enforced by the law. So that is another difference that you may see in the ethical application. And social work programs go through the nitty-gritty of ethical principles and their practice in every realm of social work practice. Another is continuing competency. Like we have to renew the registration every year, and the continuing competency by attending workshops, trainings, personal development. So you have to improve your knowledge every year, and you have to demonstrate the documents of doing that, how we have done it. We of course we have to pay the fee for maintaining the registration. It is very cheap in US. It is a bit pricey in some of the provinces in Canada. It is to an extent affordable in UK as well as in Australia. Those are the countries I know about. But in India, we don't have a registration body, so it is not very, like, we don't have to pay anything. But But say for example, doctors or lawyers, they have to maintain the registration with the say bar council or medical council, and they have to make a payment. Not just that, they have to also kind of ensure a continuing competency, that there is a new knowledge coming up, a new theory coming up, a new practice model coming up, and we have to invest in updating our knowledge base and practice approaches. One clear thing about social work practice is self-care. We have to take care of ourselves, and due importance in taking care of oneself. And because you have to give the best service to the clients, for which you have to be ready. And there is a specific instructions on workload, like there is a limit of workload, like you cannot go on seeing clients. Like I was attending a workshop, not actually a workshop, 2 days, a kind of conference in US like 2 years back in 2019. And there was lots of social workers from US as well as Canada, mostly from US. And I was talking to one lady, she was from Arizona. And she said she's meeting some 12 clients a day. I was surprised. Like even when I was a counselor back in Kerala, I was working in a district hospital in Kerala. Like if I was working as a kind of AIDS counselor, and when you actually spend some 1 hour with 4 people, I feel tired, because unattended attention to a client is required, and it is a kind of tiring process, especially in the environment that I was sitting. And she said she's working with the 12 clients, and I was surprised. And we were chatting, but she had her own ways of handling things, and she was a spiritual counselor also. So the way people approach is different. Yeah, so there are specific rules on workload. Like there is a limit of people you can work with in social work, which is also making sure that the social worker is in a perfect health situation to provide the best support for the people. Another difference or a perspective is on social work education, of which I have few slides. Like the first 5 slides were on mostly on practice. The next is on mostly on education. Social work education, and one thing I wanted to bring to attention is the difference in the education stream. So in India, we have we go to +2, then 2 years of 3 years of degree, then 2 years of post graduation. Whereas in most Western countries, including Canada, US, and UK, they have 12 years of school education. Then it is 4 years of degree, then 2 years of masters, or different levels of masters. And this 4-year degree can be bifurcated into 2 years, +2 +2. And there is an kind of that you can switch the courses, and I'm just trying to get the right word for it. Like there is a very interesting changes coming to academic system in India as well, where you can have lots of electives and open entry, open exit. I don't know, I don't get the exact word for it. So somebody can join for psychology but finish with social work, or somebody can just start with an arts program and they can finish with social work, or somebody can join in social work then finish with psychology. There are lots of choices there. But the usual format for social work education here is they go for 2-year diploma, social work diploma. Then once they complete social work diploma, either they go for work or they straight go into 2-year BS degree, which is BSW. So the BSW here is 4 years, not 3 years. And then master's is, of course, 2 years or 1.5 years, like depending upon the credit system and the semester system of the universities. So when people migrate from India to Canada or in US, one thing is that our educational credential does not get absolutely accepted here. Say, for example, a person with MA English, when they try to get accreditation for their MA English in Canada, they may not get their equivalency for MA because they have only 5 years of education after their high school, whereas in Canada or US, it requires 6 years of education. So what they will give is like 3 degree plus 1 year education. But fortunately for social work MSW, Canadian Association of Social Workers actually accept MSW as it is. So as many of the provinces, so as in the US also. So that's a good thing. So that we have 2 years of social education, which makes us eligible to practice here. But even before getting to a full registration with the various provincial bodies, there are hurdles. Like say, for example, in our province, Alberta, we have to pass a compulsory examination, which is not very easy, which is the same examination as passed in US. US, every social worker, aspiring social worker, has to pass an examination to prove their eligibility. It is not just in US, it is in Canada as well as in many other countries. So once you complete your MSW, to get your license to social worker, you have to pass one more examination. And that is a system in many countries, including US. But not like some of the provinces, states in Canada have it, but not the whole country have it. And that is a norm for many professions, like for social nurses. They have to complete nursing degree, prepare for an examination to prove their eligibility or to get their license. And that is a standard practice. It is again to ensure the quality and standardization of the profession. So we don't need MSW here to be social worker. You could be social worker with a diploma in some of the provinces, like just in Alberta. No, not some of the provinces, but just in Alberta in Canada. In many other provinces, you have to have degree, and degree is a norm. Like you could be a social worker with the BSW. But if you want to go up with the special practices or managerial position, we need to have an MSW, and that is a norm, not just in Canada, but so social work education, like the core of social work education is the same. Like we have the methods, primary methods and secondary methods, but those are not taught in that way. Like working with individuals, working with groups and families, working with communities, social policy, social research, ethics, history, child development. Those things are there, and there are electives for BSW as well as for MSW, as we have in India. Yeah, but one difference with social education is hands-on training, hands-on education, and that is one key difference we'll find, not just with education in Canada, but globally, and not just in social work, but in education. And it's very interesting. Unfortunately, in education, like Indian education, we learn lots of theories, but not much hands-on experience. So, like I did my MSW. And of course, myself and Reshma Miss are classmates in our MSW program back in Nigeria, and Josar was just our senior. And many things that we learned then, like we could actually realize to the practice after we pass out. And it is the same for you. Like many of you, for social work is something. Oh God, we don't know what it is, and people ask you, "You're a social worker, what do you do?" It's not very easy to answer the question. And what you learn in social work is also not very easy to answer. But now there is a more visibility for social work now. Like when I was studying for social work, it was just two colleges, two institutes in Kerala, whereas we have close to 15 institutes in Kerala teaching social work. So what I'm saying, it's actually hands-on education, which I mean is like when you learn casework, we don't call it a casework here, but it is working with individuals. Excuse me. We learn about interview skills, and students have to do it, and I have to demonstrate how to interview a person in the class. So for example, we talk about empathy or empathetic response or building rapport or rapport. I mean, I'm struggling with the changes in the pronunciation of words. Like rapport is how do you say in British Royal English, whereas it is rapport in Western Canadian accent. And how do you ask a question? How do you ask an open question? Okay, so I take a class on this is how do you express empathy? This is how you summarize. This is how you paraphrase. Then one student will ask you, "Hey, Baiju, you are doing great. I appreciate it. I understand what you're saying. Can you demonstrate how do you summarize a paragraph, a conversation? How do you paraphrase it? How do you express empathy?" I had to do it right then. I had to get students to do it. Then I make them in role plays right in the class to do it. So when I'm still teaching courses on kind of interviewing or working with individuals. I don't teach this year, but I'm teaching group work. Group work is one course I have been teaching for years and years. So how do you do group work? I will ask you then. So every group work course I have teach, students have to do a group work in the class. Every course that I teach on interviewing skills or conversation, communication skills, they have to do it in the class. And some of their assignments are doing it, recording it video and submitting it. So they have to do a 20 minutes case work with a person, record it and submit it to me. Then I have to go through every seconds of it and tell what they did good, what they have to improve. It's a hands-on teaching experience. That is one key change I have observed, especially in the education field. And there is a limit of learning also. You don't learn everything. You learn only about what you are going to practice. And as a matter of fact, the general knowledge and of the students, not just of a student, but of people, largely about people in North America is not as of people in Canada. Like I usually compare, I give a example to make a comparison. Like if you ask an MSc student in Kerala to speak say 10 sentences of US or America or Canada or America, they can speak 10 sentences easily. But if you ask a student in Canada to talk 10 sentences about India, they may not be able to speak because they don't have much knowledge about India or the rest of the world, because they don't have to. The education system is developed here. I mean, it is not a kind of demerit in itself, but that is what you may find when we compare things. But they are experts, kind of in whatever they feel they have learned, and that is a key change in the hands-on education system that you see in social work, not just in social work and everything. And it is self-reflective learning. It's very important. So the courses that I teach, it doesn't have any examination. What we do is all assignments, and assignments contribute into the mark. Some of the courses, some of the exams, I don't do it usually. So they have to do the self-reflective piece, like what is your social location, what is my ancestry or social capital, and how does it affect? Say, for example, like most of the students in my classes are white people, and if you are a white person and you are working with a black person or a person of colored person, what is your social location? What is your power that you see in it? And how does it affect your relationship with the person that you're working with? And they have to write upon it. And they have to identify how does that power affects the relationship. I was randomly talking to back in Kerala, and I was saying, like, if I some of the statements that I can make in classrooms in Canada, I cannot make in classrooms in India, because say, for example, if I talk about upper caste or the social location based upon the caste, class, family wealth of a person, and how is that related to the people that we work with, I may be challenged, because such is the academic field. Yeah, so what I'm saying is there is a element of self-reflection happening throughout education. It is not just learning, it is a kind of transformative process for a social worker. Then there is definitely regular field practicums are there, like field visits, assessments, evaluation, general seminars, all those things as we have in India is also happening. So students go for field practicum every year. And this is the only country that I have heard about social work education without field practicum is in Japan. I was listening to a professor's presentation in an international conference in 2010, and she was doing a comparison between social work education in Japan and India, and she was finding students with social work practicum has a better hands-on learning about social work. But every country, every social work education, all the countries have field practicum, but they may be arranged in different ways. It may be a kind of block placement or concurrent field practicum. One more big change is social work education is very critical, radical, and progressive, which means the approach we used in social work is much, much advanced. One good thing for me in my personal philosophy of social work is that many of the things that I was thinking about in social work education, I could find a theoretical framework for it when I came to Canada and learn more about some of the social work practice approaches. It is very radical and it is aiming to change system. It is political. It does not stop in just as doing the work, but they initiate policy changes, they propose policies. We do lots of research which lead into policy changes. It pushes for structural changes, a critique of social structures. It is very progressive, like working with very progressive, very liberal, like working with LGBTQ community, or all the issues or human rights issues of minority communities are taken. So that's a kind of wonderful framework that you can see in social work education, and that is not just about Canada or US. It is globally so. And some of the pioneers of social change, say for example, feminism or ecological work, all these you'll find some social work educators. There are significant contributions. And such is the dynamics of change happening in social work. Of course, it is so it's just not just social work, but the whole social science has become very interdisciplinary, where you will see we mutually exchange, take and give back each other from different disciplines like anthropology, politics, sociology, psychology, social work, everything. But social work is becoming very, very significant in making contributions to the whole field, as well as embracing the progressive ideologies. I think I talked about self-reflective learning and critical in nature. Yeah. Sorry about repeating the slide. Okay. And understanding how their social location affects the relationship with the clients is very significant. I'm working on an article on the same topic, and that is one of the areas of focus for my research and academic writing now. And another thing about teaching is it is updated knowledge. Usually, every courses follow one or two textbooks or a collection of articles, and there should be very, very current ones, published in less than last 10 years, usually less than 10 years or less than 5 years. Well, there is a big textbook lobby and market. It's also criticized. If you are groups which is fighting against the hegemony of textbook companies, and globally also there are, I don't want to use the word publication mafia, but that marketing of publication textbook is a kind of big business. Well, it does not mean that it is depriving anybody from education, but there is a huge market of textbooks also. So in many of the references that I see in some of the courses in India is basically there are n number of references, but doesn't focus upon any of them. But here it is just one or two textbooks. It is theory based. There is theory, very clear theory in all the teachings done. And when I say theory, it is not something incomprehensible. It is something very commonsensical and understandable, easily conceived by the students as well as in the practice. There is lots of research happening, and social work research is being funded by government agencies, mostly corporate trust in US, open countries. There are government as well as private donors supporting for research in social work. Whereas in Indian context, it is mostly government support for research, and there is kind of less private or corporate funding for research. And academic writing styles and plagiarism, all those are very, very important issues. Like if a student is copying or referring to something without proper references, it's a kind of plagiarism, and there's a very serious consequences for that. If somebody finds if somebody is copying it, like they could be barred from the program, and it could go to not only affect the reputation of student, but it has a very serious consequences. So that honesty in academic and integrity in academics is very significant. And this is my last slide out of the 10 points. One of the tendency in globally, not only teaching in social work, but in many professions is like teaching by practitioners. it is not just regular faculties who teach us it. It is called as sessional instructors, or what we call it, a guest faculty or part-time faculty, and they come and teach one course. When I say one course, it is equal to one paper that we say in Indian context, and they don't have to do any of the administrative work in the university. They just come and teach. Like, say for example, in my department, we have close to 40 faculty, but only 11 of us are regular faculty. The rest is all part-time or sessional faculties who practice in social workers, and they come and teach just one course. I have another Malayali who is a social worker in a hospital, and he is teaching just one course in an evening course. So such a flexibility is there, which actually brings in the knowledge from the field in teaching. Yeah, so what I was trying to share were a few observations on the social work practice and education in international context. And when I say international context, it is mostly from my experience from Canada, as well as my learning from international exposures in different ways. The first slides were focusing upon the practice, the regulations, and other associated factors of social work practice. The last 5 slides were on the context of social work education and teaching, and some of the perspectives which is slightly or much different from Indian context. I think I would stop here. Then I will encourage any sort of questions or discussions from your side, which I think would be much helpful in enriching the discussion.
Thank you, sir, for such a worthful session. Now we are moving on to the question and answer session. All the participants have the opportunities to raise your doubts and kindly requested to enable your microphone and raise your questions. If you are unable to talk, please type your respective questions in the chat box.
I must admit that I'm not sure if I have spoken to the expectation of the most of the participants, but I thought I will just share some of my observations and thoughts. But hopefully, it may have ignited some of thoughts and insights in you. But I would rather go for more discussions from your points of view, as well as if there's some areas that you would like to know more about it, let me know. It need not be just pertaining to whatever I have presented, but it could also be something you may wanted to know more about in any of the areas. Thank you. Yeah, there's somebody who is asking to ask. Yeah, please go ahead, whoever be it.
Yes, firstly, thank you so much, sir. This is me, Sneha Mathi, this side from Loyola College of Social Sciences. So my question is pertaining to the present time. Like it is like we know the unprecedented times that's going on right now. So we have a lack of field practicum and also how it's going to affect our academia in the coming years. And second question I wanted to ask is about the academic purpose as well of field practicum itself. So could you please explain what our process was like when we migrate? Right now, we are doing our MSW. So when we'll be going abroad to do our continual education study visa, what are the other educational opportunities or other subjects we can collaborate with?
I'm sorry, you asked 3 questions. One, get your second question. Third was regarding something pertaining to migration, isn't it? Can you repeat your second part of the question? Second question.
Yeah, there were only 2 questions, sir.
Okay, yeah. Yeah. So one thing about COVID, like maybe I will again split that answer into 2 on practice as well as education. On practice, what has happened in Canada as well as in many parts of the world, which I learned from my interaction with a few of the friends globally, the social work practice have maintained through online resources and services. And there has been lots of innovations that have happened. Like, humanity has the talent, or not the talent, what is the right word for it? Like, it has a kind of indomitable will to effectively address any of the challenges that comes on its way. That is what we have seen last 1 year during pandemic. Yeah, so social work also has been affected. Social workers have been kind of stressed out along with many health workers, but it has been going on in a remote manner. With education, like for me, like we switched into online education in 2020 March 15th onwards, towards the end of the semester. And as a matter of fact, I forgot to mention that we have a semester system of education. So the fall summer, like as we have in India, but the semester is limited to 3 months, around 3 months, not 4 months. And there is a huge long gap. Like for the academic year starts in September, as we have in June in India. September to December is the first semester, then January to April, second semester. I mean, fall and winter semesters. Then we have spring and summer. We don't have any social work courses in spring and summer. So students actually go for work. Most of them work. Most of students work, and they come back for the classes in fall. And so one challenge was with the field practicum, which has been the same all over the world. And so what we do was that we encourage some of the remote learning practicums. So students could do some online work. Students could occasionally visit the offices with all the health protocol. And one of the innovation that I did was that I did some international field practicum. So I had students doing, like, they were here and they're doing practicum in Kudumbasari. I had students doing field practicum in one of the agencies in Kasaragod as well as in Bangalore. Yeah, so we were trying to find some, kind of innovative ways of doing field practicum. So that's what we did. Second, with migration, so if you're a MSW person trying to migrate into Canada, you could come through two routes. One is, of course, through the PR, like permanent residency programs, and there are several programs for that. There is a express entry. Then there are new programs like Northern and Rural Immigration Program, Atlantic Immigration Pilot Program. I'm not very sure if I said the programs rightly. Yeah, so if you come to as a PR in Canada, you come and beat any part of the Canada. Don't wait. If you want to come, just come. And the weather is much different. It may be difficult for first few years, but you can get into your own field of choice after a few years. Second route is to come as a student. You can come as a student with a student permit. So if you come as a student for 2 years, you get 3 years of social work, stay back, by which period you usually can get a PR. If you come for a 1-year course, you get 1 year 1 year stay back, with which also you can try to get a PR. And one thing to do is, like, when you choose the courses here, you have to choose courses related to social work, which means, like, say, addiction counseling, youth work, support work, or those kind of things. It's not very easy to get into PhD. Like, PhD is very costly here, which is not affordable for somebody from India, because for international students, the colleges gets double the fee. So if once you become PR here, you can get into whatever field you are interested, and the fees will be much less. Yeah, so I don't know if I answered the questions fully, but yeah, those are my responses.
Thank you, sir. You answered my question well. Thank you.
I see one question here. What are the ethical challenges for social workers during COVID-19 in Canada? That's a very good question. Like any other question. I think I haven't thought in detail about the ethical challenges. Yeah, I don't know what could be an additional ethical challenge. One could be maybe the netizen etiquette. When I say netizen etiquette, is that the etiquette that you have to show while you are online, and the challenges of getting connected to people, as well as maintaining the health protocols, like wearing the PPE, mask, and everything. So those are the kind of things that I have seen. I don't think there is any kind of revised ethical recommendations given by any national or provincial bodies, But of course, there was lots of suggestions and guidelines on working with in the COVID context. Yeah, I'm sorry that I cannot specifically answer the question regarding ethical challenges during COVID. I see another question from Sam. As the profession is emerging in India as well as where would you suggest that we practice the profession if we were to expect constant growth from the practice? I'm not very sure what does it mean, like where practice where would you suggest that we practice? So when we say where, is it a physical location or is it a area of practice? Could some further clarify the question? Oh, okay. In India or abroad? Okay. Well, that's a difficult question to difficult question to answer. Like like it is not just about social work as a profession. It is also about your life. And the question is what you want to do with your life. What you want to do. Where do you want to be? What do you want to do with your life, say in next 20 years or so, or what is? Yeah. So every country has its own opportunities as well as challenges. So if you want to work as a social worker, have a comfortable life, perhaps some of the Western countries can provide you much opportunities. But if you want to really get more active, make a difference in the lives of people in several ways, all the countries give opportunity. Like you could be a award-winning social worker in any part of the world, be in India or in Canada. Like we heard by Malayali from Angamali, who won the award for best clinical social worker in our state last year, and we have a group of social workers in Alberta, and we invited him for a appreciation meeting. And he's from Angamali, and he had been in Canada for 10 years, and he got an award. And not just he, there are social workers in Canada, not just in Canada, but in any part of the world, many parts of the world. As I said, I was referring to Johnny Augustine. People who are in big positions contributing significantly. But perhaps on a personal note, I would say you could do more in India than in Western countries. Perhaps that is something that personally with me, and I miss it. I miss my beloved colleagues, and I miss teaching you students in person in the classrooms, and traveling with you for a study tour, or kind of chit chatting with a coffee shop. There is no such kind of relationship with students here, and the legacy you can leave in your work or in your life is less in Western countries than compared to India. This is my personal opinion. Somebody may have a different opinion. Yeah, but if you want to, when you move to Western country, it is more comfort. Your everyday life is much more convenient and comfortable. But I mean is if you go to office or a bank, you drive, you go there, people greet you, everyone is positive. You get the things done quickly. It is not as you go to an office or a government or a bank or in other parts of the, like say for example in India, where it is not very easy. It's the situation may not be that cordial sometimes, and all those kind of issues of traveling. So everyday life is much convenient in Western countries. Then, as I said, like you can make difference in the life of people. And one thing I have found with the people like Malayalis, so there are about more than 100 social workers in our province, and there should be Malayali social workers in Canada. I mean, I'm just assuming, or it should be somewhere around. I mean, like in UK, Australia, New Zealand, Ireland, US, all these countries have huge number of social workers from India and mostly from Kerala, and we are making a big difference, and that's visible because we often try to do the best, and we are hardworking, and the workload of social worker, not just of social worker, but any other profession here is not as much as that we can see in India. It's much less even though it is very critical, it is not as huge as what you see in other in India. So, so these are some of the factors that you may be considering when you want to make a choice. I don't know if I answered the question as you were expecting, but those are some of my thoughts.
Hello, sir. Hello, sir.
Yeah,
may I ask one question?
Please.
Am I audible?
Yes.
All right. Hello, sir. I'm actually currently I'm a final year MSW student specializing in community development in Kerala itself. I'm currently in my 4th semester, and my course will be ending possibly in the next 2 months. So, and even though my course ends in less than 2 months, I'm yet to receive my results from first year onwards. To this situation of COVID, the university might be publishing the results only by next year of the complete course up to 4th semester. So if there is a 1 year gap, is there any possibility for me to find a job in Canada in this 1 year gap, possibly by this year itself? Is there any, based on your knowledge, if there is anything, can you share it, please?
Yeah, thanks for the question. And it's a challenging time, but unfortunately, I may have to say no to the prospect of finding a job, because you cannot come to Canada for a job. It's not as you go to Gulf. You cannot get a job visa to go and work. You have to either come as a student or after PR. Of course, there are few jobs where you can get job. Like, it's a huge process, which is very pricey. So not very easy that you can come here as a work. Yeah. Sorry about that. That is a scenario with regard to Canada. Not any other Western countries. I know that I'm talking in English. I wish if I could speak in Malayalam also. And those people, if somebody wants to speak in Malayalam, you are most welcome to speak. I would love to hear some Malayalam questions also, like if somebody wanted to. Yeah, let me go to the chat and pick up some other questions.
Right, anyway, thank you, sir. Thank you for your answer.
You're welcome. I think as for Manjana, does all the foreign countries have exams to work as a social worker? No. US, of course, has. Some of the provinces in Canada has. I'm not very sure about UK. Australia doesn't have. When we say the examination, there are different levels of examination. The one that we do in Canada and US is perhaps the most difficult one. And if you go to some social workers group, you'll find even students who studied social work in the US are against it, the examinations. It's a very tough one. Like, I passed the examination, I did the examination, I passed it. Yeah, so you don't have to take examination if you move to other countries, but you may have to, you Google, look into the provincial or state legislations, and they'll let you know. And you can often email them, and people are usually cordial and respond to the emails. Every email you send into a college or association. What are the qualifications? There's a question from Vincent. What are the qualifications required for a master's student to practice abroad other than masters? You don't need any. Like, your master's degree is accepted as a master in social work here. So you could be a social worker. And as a matter of fact, it doesn't matter much here. Well, if you want to become a clinical social worker, perhaps a medical psychiatrist social worker would help you. But you don't have to. Like, out of the many social workers in our province, there is not even a single clinical social worker. It's a much different level of it. So don't worry about those things. Like, internationally, there are areas of practice which you can choose based on your education as well as of your interest. And one good thing is that you can switch into one area of practice just doing just one course. Like, you can pick a one short program, some of the universities, then you can specialize in them, and that is a good thing about it. So once you have MSW and you move to Western country, and if that MSW is accepted as MSW, you're good to work. I think there is a question from Alan Jacob. Job opportunity in different concentrations of social work. No, as I said earlier, there is nothing like that. So concentration of social work doesn't matter. Like, if you say, I have 5 years of experience in mental health, I was 5 years of experience in community work. No, those things doesn't matter. You have to start from the beginning when you come to a new country, be it Canada, be it US, be it UK, be it Australia. Of course, your experience helps you, but you are coming to a totally different country with a totally different population. Everything is different. It takes some time to understand it. So specializations do not count much when you move to a different country, but it will help you to learn more about what are the due to the current pandemic situation, what are the contribution to manage the crisis. Manage the crisis, like there's a mental health pandemic coming after COVID. And that's the reality, because people are tired of sitting at home. Well, in Canada, it's free now. Like for us, there is no restriction in our province. Well, we have to wear a mask only in some places. 80% of people got first dose, 60% of people got second doses, and the new cases are much, much less. So that is an advantage and perhaps a privilege of being a developed country. So social workers, one of the challenges for social workers is, working with people with the mental health issues, and mental health issues is a big challenge here. So social workers are contributing significantly to address the mental health issues here. And I find it responding to the question. There is an interesting question from Mary. Our efficient and hardworking social workers migrate to other nations. How that could affect Indian system? How a social worker should be treated in our nation? And that's a very significant question. I don't think all the efficient, hardworking social workers have migrated. I know that I'm not hardworking and I'm not efficient, so that is why I'm here. So efficient and hardworking people are still there. And it is not just with social work, it is with everything. I mean, you see, best people in IAS, most people in IAS and civil services, they often choose some international careers and move out of India. You see many of our collectors going for education. Best people in every field move to different countries. And one good thing is the freedom they enjoy, the growth opportunities for growth, and the comfort of everyday life, the privacy, research funding, all those things are attractions. And on the other side, once people come here and they build their family, it is not very easy to go back. It's a trap. Few years and go back, and they fall in a trap. They can't go back, and that's a sad reality, because their families get into the culture of this country. They cannot go back and readapt into Kerala or Indian situation. It's not very easy. People like, I have a social worker, a friend who is in Australia now. He's from one of the few initial batches in Pioneer Center. He is in abroad for 15 years now. He was in UK then, and he was saying, ഇത്രയും കാലം സാറ് വിദേശത്ത് ജീവിച്ച് നാട്ടിൽ പോയി ജീവിക്കാൻ പറ്റത്തില്ല. ഒറ്റ കാരണമുള്ളൂ, സർക്കാർ ഓഫീസിൽ പോയി കഴിഞ്ഞാൽ പ്രശ്നമാവും. ഇവിടെയാണെങ്കിൽ എല്ലാം സ്മൂത്ത് ആയിട്ട് പോകും. ദാറ്റ് ഈസ് വാട്ട് ഐ വാസ് റെഫറിങ് ടു ദ everyday, like comfort of everyday life. So people find it very, very difficult to readjust to the everyday life situations, and people don't want to come back. And another factor is like the third wave of immigration. When I say third wave of immigration, like, third wave, but we had the migration to Ceylon, all those things in 1930s. Then we had Gulf migration in 1970s. Then after 2000, we have immigration to US, UK, Canada, Australia. There are communities coming up, like say for example, the town city I am in. This is it's called as Edmonton, which is the capital of the province of Alberta. We have a population of close to 10 lakh people. And in this city, we have close to 20,000 Malayalis, which means you have everything available for Malayalis here. So, and it's coming up, it's going up. So there is a kind of diaspora developing here. So people do not want to come back. And as I said, it's a kind of trap. So So that is the answer to the first part of the question. Second part is like, of course, how a social worker should be treated in our nation is a big question, and because there are two sets of answers for it. One is what social workers can contribute. Like, when you make a contribution, when you make a difference, people understand, appreciate, and promote you. Second is from the institutional sides, like, the salary, the payments, and the accreditation, the organizations, the government approach is very, very significant. Yeah, collective effort is what is required. And there is also a kind of contextual thinking about, is India ready for a professional social worker? That's another question, because social work developed as a profession in capitalized or developed countries, whereas in many of the developing countries, including India, we have some community-based, institutionalized ways of addressing social issues. So what is the role of a professional social worker? It's a kind of question. And we often, even a person with MSW, like, I'm not blaming anybody, but I have heard from various NGO directors, so it is rather easy to train a degree person and give some exposure to in community work than employing an MSW person, because the person with the training, a few years of training with education, with the device degree, can perform well. I mean, what I'm referring to is, like, what is the difference that we can make? That's a big question, not just in our knowledge, but in our that we do. Yeah, so I'm definitely agree that there is a more respect, more payment, more government support required for social workers in Indian context. But it's a kind of collective effort, a long road to go. Yeah, that is my response to that question.
Thank you, sir.
I have Jisha, is a Jilsha. What are the opportunities we have in abroad for MSW in disaster management in the present scenario? Disaster management is not a big focus in Western countries. See, many of the specialization and education we have in India is based upon the Indian context. But Western countries, including US, Canada, US, Australia, UK, they are more developed. And the sense of community is much different. 10 people coming for an event is a huge crowd, whereas 1,000 doesn't make a crowd in Kerala or India. So it's much, much different context here. And another is, so the focus is mostly on working with individuals, because there's more privacy here. Individual work is more important. So of course, there are lots of community work. And when I say community work, it is not geographical community, it's community of interest. Like, you work with indigenous people, you work with the LGBT community, you work with immigrants, you work with these people. So it's a community of interest is there. So disaster management per se is not a huge area of specialization or area of practice in many of the countries. But I would suggest that it's a big upcoming area when you look into international opportunities. Like, if you work with international NGOs, UN agencies, it's a wonderful choice you can make into. Can we find jobs in Canada without certain years of experience? It is, as I said earlier, you cannot find a job here. You have to come either as, you have to get a PR to work here, or you have to get a job visa, which is not very easy for social workers. But some of the diploma courses that person who has option MSW in community development can pursue in Alberta in order to get an appropriate job. Yeah, MSW, what you need is the MSW, not the specialization doesn't matter here. I think I was referring to some of the courses, like you could work with youth worker, addiction counseling, non-profit management, autism courses in the purview which you can choose from. Could you suggest some varied courses PG level available in relation to? I think I referred to some of the courses earlier. Emotional disaster management considers. So clinical social worker is you don't have, you are a social worker and you are doing clinical work. But clinical social work is a separate licensing process which takes enormous amounts of time, energy and practice. Like I sit in a clinical committee with our council, so you have to have lots of experience, like at least 5 years experience. So don't get to worry about clinical social worker. Like if you go to US, they have several titles. Like there is a LCSW, licensed clinical social worker. We have RCSW, registered clinical social worker. There are different titles. So you could work as a clinical worker even without getting clinical registry. So you could get into any work based upon your social work education. So don't worry about getting your specialization on that way. I think I have responded to most of the questions or all the questions in the chat box. I'll still welcome any questions or additions or comments or thoughts, Malayalam or English. Gerontology is one, working with the seniors, like one of seniors refer to old age people. Yeah, it's a kind of big area, but it doesn't. Yeah, so there are lots of prospects for geriatrics and gerontology in all parts of the world. I think I should stop talking about jobs in Canada because the topic is not very specific to that one. As I just conclude by saying that you have to get a PR, permanent residence, to get a job here, except for few specific professions.
Thank you, sir, for
Moving on to the closure of this webinar, let me welcome Ms. Arundhati Raj for the vote of thanks.
Good morning to all. It is such an honor for me to get the opportunity on the behalf of the MSW Department of Sree Sankaracharya University of Sanskrit, Regional Campus Thuravoor. I would like to express my gratitude to all esteemed delegates of the webinar for their presence and contribution to make this webinar a great success. First of all, I extend my gratitude to thank our respected chief guest, V Baiju, Assistant Professor of MacEwan University, Edmonton, Canada, for the inspiring and informative session on the topic Social Work Education and Practice, International Perspectives. Further, I would like to express my sincere thanks to Dr. Bichu X. Malayil, ma'am, the Campus Director of Sree Sankaracharya University of Sanskrit, Regional Campus Thuravoor. We would never be here without your generosity, ma'am. Next, I wish to express my gratitude to Dr. Reshma Bharadwaj, ma'am, the Head of the Department of Social Work, Sree Sankaracharya University. Without your support, ma'am. And I would like to extend my gratitude to Dr. Sheila R. Ma'am, teacher in charge of Sree Sankaracharya University of Sanskrit, Regional Campus, Thuravoor, the supporting pillar of the family as well. Next, I would like to express my gratitude to in charge of Sree Sankaracharya University of Sanskrit, Regional Campus, Thuravoor, and also Dr. Anita A., teacher in University of Sanskrit, Regional Campus, Payyanur. Next, I would like to acknowledge our gratitude to Dr. Anish MS for providing immense support to make the webinar successful. Last but not least, I must thank the organizing team and volunteers and all the social work trainees to make this webinar a great success. Thank you.